Hey there everybody, this is Robin with Creative2xmom, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the books we read in the month of November. So welcome back to my channel. My name is Robin and this is Creative2xmom. This channel is all about homeschooling, parenthood, and thriving in the day-to-day. And I have to apologize that this video is so late. We have been in the middle of moving and I happened to see the charger for my camera battery and I thought, oh, I need that, and I grabbed it and I tucked it away someplace safe. So it's probably been about 2 weeks since I've been looking for that battery charger and haven't been able to find it anywhere. So I finally have my camera charged and I can share with you what we read in November. Unfortunately, you also have to put up with the car vlog because it's December, it's the holidays, and I have 3 kids, which means a whole lot of stuff going on. We have had days filled with choir rehearsals and church play practices, and my daughter's dancing in the Nutcracker this year, so you all understand. You've all got your own craziness and chaos going on right now, I'm sure. That is just December for you. So I'm in the car at my kids' school. Hopefully there's not too much sun or shadows and we will just get through this because we had some great books in November. The first 2 books that I read in November were actually pre-reads because I'm looking for some meaty theology, good church biblical doctrine to give to my teenagers. And so I have been looking at a few different places. I've looked at Ambleside online. That's where this one came from, How to Be Your Own Selfish Pig. I also looked at Sunlight's curriculum because I was thinking about doing that with my daughter, and that's where this one came from. Don't all religions lead to God. So starting out in November, end of October, I was reading those 2 to kind of look at what I wanted to pass on to my daughter specifically. She's in 9th grade. So How to Be Your Own Selfish Pig, this is by Susan Schaefer McCulley. Her books, I think the only book I've ever read of hers was the For the Children's Sake, which is, of course, Charlotte Mason, and that's why this one can be found on Ambleside. This was a quick read. The chapters are probably only about 6 pages long. Half the time they are comics, on the page, or a full comic on the page. This went over some things like looking out for number 1, just some of the sneaky mindsets that you could adopt in those formative teenage years. I wasn't super impressed with this one. I'm not sure she's going to really like it because she's such a serious student. I think probably this would be good for her age, around that 9th, 10th grade level, because it's a little bit simpler. Then you get into something that's a little bit headier, and I think she's going to really enjoy this one. And this is by Michael Green. He systematically goes through some of the arguments of, but we are all on paths, we are all on spiritual paths, don't all religions lead to God? Very, very short book, but meaty. I was reading a chapter every couple of days because the content in it is so much deeper. I would recommend this one probably for a higher level high schooler, although I think I will pass this off to my 9th grader at some point. I'm going to have her start with this one. I don't know if she'll like it just because it's a little bit more slapstick, tongue-in-cheek, and that's not really her sense of humor, but I'm going to have her start with that one, see what she thinks. Then in November, I read Giving Your Words by Sally Clarkson. This was a review book for me, and I'm going to link my full review down below. But basically, Clarkson goes through the idea of creating a words-rich home and how you can encourage your kids, build your kids up by speaking life and choosing the words and the way that you speak to your kids, the way you create a family culture through just what you say. This book came at a timely moment in my parenting journey. I'm sure I'm going to read it over again. It's one of those books that she writes in very lyrical language. So I had to be in the right mindset to absorb what she was saying, and she gives very high-arcing themes, not a lot of how-tos necessarily, but a lot of principles, very idealistic principles, but principles to strive for. And I think this is going to be one of those books that I come back to probably year after year because I think it could be transformational in my parenting journey. It's very different from the way I think. I do think words are important, but she focuses a lot on the building up, the encouragement, and I think I need that perspective a lot more than I realized. But I'm going to link my full review down below for you to check out. Very, very good book. Very well worth your time. From Sally Clarkson, I moved on over to Laying Down the Rails for Yourself. This is by Sonia Schaefer. Can you tell I was in a Charlotte Mason mood this month? So I got into this one. I have never been able to get my hands on any of the Rails curriculum for parenting or for homeschooling because it is so expensive. This book is quite a bit cheaper, and I think it was under 15, I think. And it comes from the perspective of now you're an adult and you haven't had that habit training in your childhood. So how can you begin to lay down the rails for yourself? I was rereading this one for my teenager, but even as an adult, I got a lot out of it. I think I'm going to pass this one off to my 17-year-old as he's getting ready to leave the home, just for him to go through it. And then in the back, and this was my favorite part, she gives a list of some general categories that you might want to start developing habits in yourself. And so they're not specific habits, but they're more categories to think about, okay, where am I lacking in this? Some of them are physical, some of them are hygiene, some of them are religious habits, some of them are mental habits, which I think are really important, especially in today's day and age where we can be so easily distracted. That alone, that back section for me was well worth it. And if you're coming at laying down the rails with teenagers, I think this is a good place to start. Since we've never had that curriculum as part of our day-to-day life, I would probably err more on something like this because it felt like the examples were more age appropriate. Wow, that was a lot of nonfiction. I hadn't realized, I don't think I read a fiction book for myself in the month of November, now that I'm looking back and reflecting with you guys. So it's a good thing it's December. December, I tend to load up with a lot more fiction books because there was not a nonfiction book to be had that month, apparently. But I did do 2 read alouds with the kids, and the first one was Word of Mouse. This was a super cute story about a little mouse and his family who are trying to escape a lab, and he's the only one that makes it out. He's very shy, very timid, and he happens to stumble upon another mouse family that brings him in and accepts him, and he finds a little girl, and he knows how to type, so him and this little girl can communicate with each other. Long story short, they develop this plan to go rescue the rest of his family, and he has to convince the other mice to help him because they're so afraid that not only will they fail, but they will also be captured. So it's a story of this little mouse who uses his talents, his abilities, his voice, who is so timid at the beginning of the story and rises to the occasion to rescue his family. Very cute. I have a 9th grader and a 6th grader. My 9th grader liked it, she enjoyed it, but it didn't captivate her like it did my 6th grader. He loved it. It was pretty funny though too, some of the adventures that this little mouse gets involved in. Then our second read aloud for the month of November was A Season of Gifts by Richard Peck. This is number 3. It follows behind A Year Down Yonder and A Long Way from Chicago. I was afraid that we would pick up this story and be a little bit lost because it's number 3, but you do not need to know the first 2 books to get into this one at all. It's a very standalone title. So we have Mrs. Dowdle, and she's sort of the town grump. And we have this pastor's family that moves into this little town. I think it's set in probably the 1960s. And they move next door to her. And all of the hilarity that ensues. Everybody's a little bit afraid of her, but she kind of starts to adopt this family by way of the younger sister, who is always kind of sneaking over to Mrs. Daddle's house. I think she worms her way into Mrs. Daddle's heart, and so she sort of adopts this family, helps the pastor get started in his church through a series of just hilarious episodes, and it all culminates in a Christmas Eve service, and that's why it's a season of gifts. It follows the family from August through December. Very, very cute. I wasn't sure I was going to like it. Again, don't judge a book. Don't judge a book until you read it. Because we read this one, and just like we read The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, I think that we will be rereading this one every year. Very, very funny. I would definitely recommend it. And even my 9th grader loved this one. Okay, so what is coming up in December? Well, it's December 7th, so I can definitely tell you what's coming up in December. I picked up a copy of Mr. Dickens and his Carol. This is from my library, so check it out. It's a few years old. You should be able to get your hands on a copy of that. That has been, so far, I'm not that far into it, maybe 50 pages. So far, it's been a good seasonal read. And then as far as nonfiction goes, I have 2 nonfiction books going on right now. Divine Disruption, and that is by Tony Evans and his kids. And I also have a book called Start With Hello, which is a review book for me. And it's about reaching out, creating community with your neighborhood, how to create community, why that's valuable and important, especially in post-2020 culture. That one I'm going to review, and I'm almost done with it. I'm letting my thoughts kind of churn around in my brain before I get that review up, but that one will be coming very, very soon. Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you are reading, specifically fiction, because obviously I need a little bit more fiction in my life, especially in this crazy season of December. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.